Example.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what I wrote. You tell me what I should have wrote.
Okay.
Is that alright as well?
Yeah, that's a learning point.
Yeah.
So tell us what you understand when it says that God so loved the world that He sent His only Son. How do you understand that?
God loved the world and gave His Son.
Yeah.
I mean, like, self-explanatory.
Yeah. What do you think we mean by Son, though?
Jesus.
Yes. Do you think that we believe that God had a partner, that God had a wife, that He took a consort, that He had a child?
Well, I think this is what I understand, that you're mushrikeen. So you do associate partners with God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. I understand you can say the truth is flowing the water. I forgot to say that also as well.
Yeah.
But regardless, but that is what you're gonna say, isn't it?
So it's slightly a different answer to the question that I gave you. So the question was, do you believe when we say that God had a son, do you believe that we believe that God took a consort, a wife? Good. That's really important that you.
Mary was Joseph's wife.
Yes, Mary was Joseph's wife. Exactly. So God, we don't believe when we say that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, we don't believe that God had a wife or that God had a consort. Yeah? So
for starters, Mary was virgin, both in Islam and Christianity.
Exactly. Mary was a virgin. So there's no idea that God had sex with a woman.
Yeah, and I do have, a bit of knowledge about Christianity.
Yeah, clearly you do. Clearly you have some.
I'm not an apologist.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
So when I was taking my GCSEs, there was a 12-mark question, and it was about like why should women lead in the church?
Is that the question they asked you?
Should women lead in the church? This wasn't my GCSE exam.
Right.
And you know what I wrote? I go, if you look at the Bible, every prominent figure was a man, every person who led war was a man, Jesus was a man, the Pope was a man, what else did I write? And that the woke left are trying to change the narrative into making it seem that men and women are equal and women should be able to lead the church.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be the case, because there's equality and there's also being fair. Like men can do one, like let's say my dad, he vacuumed, my mum, she cleaned the dishes.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote.
Go on.
And that was like my question. What should I wrote?
So you got more right than wrong in that question. Let's put it that way. But leadership, what I would have put if I was answering that question, is that leadership comes in many, many forms. There's formal leadership, and then there's informal leadership. And in scripture, and also there's different levels of leadership. There's different hierarchies in leadership. Like the caliph has got people underneath him, hasn't he? And each one of those people underneath the caliph have other people underneath them, and so on and so forth. So in terms of church structure of leadership, there is evidence that women were what we call deacons, which means that they had a limited role of responsibility within the church. And we have evidence in church history that there were women who led Christians informally, even into martyrdom, and that women were often rich widows, were often patronesses of early Christian fellowships. And so they had some degree of leadership. However, Christ only ever appointed male apostles.
Should have wrote that.
And the male apostles only ever chose other male apostles. And that the priest is a representative of the apostle. And so whilst women can have some degrees of leadership within the church, they cannot have the highest levels of leadership within the church. But this is to give you a full answer, right? Christians make a distinction between religious law and secular law. And the highest secular leader is like the king or the queen, and they are the equivalent to a laity in the church, right? And in the Christian understanding, there's no problem with having a female queen. So if you look at Christian history, we've had multiple female queens in charge of secular government.
Like the
Queen Elizabeth.
That she used to bow her head to the Pope when when the church was like just as prominent as the monarchy.
Well, the Queen only would have bowed her head to the Pope as a sign of respect. But the reality is, Catherine the Great, Queen Isabella, Queen Elizabeth, Jeanne d'Arc. There's countless examples of female leaders within secular affairs. And that's actually one of the key differences between Christianity and Islam, is that in all of Islamic history, you've never had a female leader of government. Like, and you can't have a female caliph, can you?
I don't know.
Right, you can't. You can't. Right, you've only ever had male caliphs. You've never had a female caliph. Yeah, not officially, not legally. Right, but in Christianity, it's perfectly all fine for women to have secular leadership. But in terms of church government, their government is limited.
Yeah. You know, I also wrote that the woke left are trying to, use propaganda to initiate this.
Oh yeah,
idea.
the woke left have their agenda, and the thing is, once they've done trying to change Christianity, they're going to come to the mosque. Don't think they're stopping at the churches.
Like there's a church in Miami that's supposed to LGBT.
Yeah.
Even though in the book of Leviticus it says man lying with man, women lying with women, which is an abomination. This leads on to the other question.
Well, there's a mosque in South Africa that's pro-LGBTQ.
Well, they're not Muslims.
Well, this is the point.
Okay, and I'll tell you in the Quran.
And this is the point: is that when a Christian leader or when a Christian congregation says we are in favour of LGBTQ, they have erred from the faith.
You know what
They've gone astray.
John 3:16. That's why they say that.
Right. So let's talk about John 3:16. So what happens in John 3:16 is God the Father says to all of us that we are accepted by God because of His love, and God offers each of us a free gift of salvation that's in our back pocket. It's like we've got a check to cancel our great debt in our back pocket. The only difference is that the Christian has cashed the check. You've got the check, bro. What's your name again? Usman, you've got the check in your back pocket, but you've not cashed the check. And that's what separates me and you.
Okay, so those the question the exam was about, Christianity, LGBTQ. I go, it's not allowed in Christianity. I didn't know that quote until about a month or two after. I've only recently now thought I want to learn about Islam and I'm not here to disprove and I just want to learn.
Okay, learning is good, and having a mindset that wants to learn is a good thing.
Like, if you explain something to me, I'll try. Even with the.
Can I just say, Usman, you're more mature than most of the adults in this park. You seriously have a much more mature attitude than most of the adults in this park, and I want to laud you for that and applaud you for that.
Okay, so
go on, your next question.
So the next question was that in the exam it said about LGBTQ, and I wrote that it's not allowed because God says go forth and multiply.
Yep.
And that due to that they can't multiply, so they shouldn't be gay and be lesbian.
Yeah.
So how would you answer that question?
So as a Christian, the way that I would answer the question about LGBTQ is that Christianity teaches that we have to relate to Christ through our sexuality. We relate to our sexuality through our relationship to Christ. We don't relate to Christ through our sexuality. And that's the key difference between that's the key difference between Christianity and the Western culture. Is Western culture says relate to Jesus through your sexuality, but Christianity says relate to your sexuality through your relationship with Jesus. And that means that when it comes to the practice of homosexuality, it's forbidden in our religion. Someone who has homosexual feelings must abstain. But one of the differences between Christianity and Islam is that in Islam, the practice of homosexuality is punishable by death. Now, I think that is unjust, given the fact that we know that people aren't making a choice based on their sexuality.
Wait,
go on.
Where they say it's punishable by death, in Islam there's only 3 times punishable by death. One is murder.
Yep.
The second is adultery.
And the third is leaving Islam. Yeah.
And they're not leaving Islam.
Yeah.
Working against Islam.
Well, what it actually says in Sahih al-Bukhari is those that leave Islam. So it's not those that work against Islam, it's those that leave Islam. That's what Sahih al-Bukhari says, right? But
wait, but a lot of in the time of our prophet, there are a lot of Jews. Why we didn't kill them, did we?
Well, that's not apostasy though. The fact is, when Muslims have left Islam and become Christian, as I hope you will one day, Like, I hope you will.
Astaghfirullah.
Because you know the thing is, Osman, you actually seem like a sincere person. And while ever you have a sincere heart, you have the chance to find the truth. Right? So it is possible, like my friends, because I have lots of Christian friends from a Muslim background, that you could just become another one, you know? Because if you're interested, what's important is that we find the truth, right? It's more important than family honor. It's more important than friends. It's more important than family, is that we find the truth and we stand on the truth.
Iman is more important than
Exactly. So wherever the truth leads, that's where we've got to go. And if that points us to the exit door of Islam, that's where we've got to go, right?
if it does prove that.
Yeah, if paganism was the truth, I'd want to be a pagan, right? If atheism was the truth, I'd want to be an atheist, right? If Christianity's the truth, you should want to be a Christian.